to the delay.
Should be up in a second.
Don't have enough people, so let's get right on the phone to leadership and get permission to start the meeting without a quorum so we can get the briefing. And then if we have to vote on something, we'll do that.
Okay. Who's making that call?
As we're getting
I
rolling.
don't,
here, I just
who
wanted
usually
to
does?
remind everyone,
Maybe we've never done it here.
This
So
vote
who does? I'm
today,
sorry.
we only have until noon tomorrow to report that vote.
That sounds like a Lynn thing, right?
Just a little bit, and you have to contact your
Please.
president.
Available to you on the YouTube channel soon after the meeting has concluded.
So we've got a lot of,
Do it. To Title 3, Section 157, statutes requires to be an affirmative
Sounds like Dill.
confirmation of the nominee. Chair recognizes my co-chair, Representative.
Feel like I'm
That
in
was
the wrong
ACM.
committee.
It was. All right. We're live streaming.
yes,
We
we
still
are.
need permission because we don't have a quorum. Looks like VLA's trying to get going, but they're not calling me yet. As soon as we have permission, we'll start this meeting.
How many people do we
Do
need?
not see
We got 5.
7 and and a senator. And so we have a senator. Senator Rosen has raised her hand. I don't even see her in the list of people here.
Oh.
She must be in as a
Yes, I'm
panelist
sorry.
or
I'll
participant, whatever
pull
it
them
is.
in.
Thank you. There they are. They're out somewhere.
There we go.
That link you sent this morning took us in as panelists, but not as members of the committee. I went back, after I saw that, I went back to my calendar and came in through the link you sent the other day.
Yeah, there are various ways.
Yeah, I had 3 links for the webinar, so, and
Yeah.
I'm I've been trying desperately to get on.
No,
So
what's
thank
great.
you.
What's
Great
great.
to
though,
have you.
being able to
Everybody,
meet
if
all
you
of the
could
extra
mute your microphone unless you're going to speak. Welcome to Marine Resources for May 11th. Great to have you here. There are no people testifying. It's just who you see here. The commissioner with the department is going to brief us on a couple of issues that we have listed as nothing. It's about a couple of reports we're asking for. He'll give you a thorough explanation, and none of it requires me to say much. No public hearings, no work sessions, and we'll introduce the committee. I'm Senator Dave Marymount, represent Senate District 12, which is Knox County. County seats Rockland, and my co-chair, Representative McCrate. We can skip by her for a second if she's busy, because we all have multiples. We'll go right to Senator Rosen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm Kimberly Rosen. I have Senate District 8. My district consists of Castine, Penobscot, Orland, Verona Island, Bucksport, Orrington, Brewer, Holden, Dedham, Lucerne, Eddington, Great Pond, Bradley, Clifton, Lincoln, Lowell, and Burlington. Thank you.
Great. And Representative McCrate, you back? And Senator Rosen, I'm sorry, Senator Maxman.
Hi there, I'm Chloe Maxman. I represent Senate District 13, which is all of Lincoln County except for Dresden plus Washington and Windsor.
Okay, thank you. Representative Alley.
Yes, sir. All right. Robert Alley from down in Washington County. I have 12 districts here. I'm on District 138. There's 12 communities that I work with down here. Thank you.
Nice. Representative Hepler.
Good morning. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which includes the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, which is where I live, Dresden, and a small part of Richmond.
Thank you. Representative Stanley.
Good morning. I'm Peggy Stanley. I represent the Katahdin area, which is the towns of Millmarket, East Millmarket, Medway, Patton, and some unorganized townships.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Bloom.
I'm Lydia Bloom. I represent House District 3 in York.
Thank you. And Representative McCray. She's over in VLA. That's my co-chair is Representative McCray from somewhere south of me on the coast there. I should know this, right? Say it every day and it just escaped me. And our wonderful clerk is Linda LaCroix back there with Reed State Park behind her. And Lynn Caswell, our analyst, is there officially from OPLA with her official stamp up on the wall there. So we're going to allow the department to brief us on some requests we made, and they don't really need much introduction. I don't know who's doing it, but the commissioner's here, Director Gilbert's here, and they'll do what they want around that. Looks like Representative McCray might be back. I introduced you badly. If you're back. No, okay. Many people ignore me. Well, I'm used to it, so we'll just move right on. And here we go, turning it over to the department. Or no, I'll turn it over to Lynn. Lynn, do you have anything to introduce, or are you good? I got your email with the rules and the law.
I wondered if you wanted me to just brief everyone on what the GEA reports were and the deadlines.
Sure.
So the committee sent a letter to the commissioner stating that the committee wanted to do the Government Evaluation Act review pursuant to Title III on both the department and the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. Those two were scheduled to be reviewed in 2021. The reviews occur every 8 years. I sent you out an email with the attachment that said what the reports are supposed to include. The timeline is we sent a letter. The entities that are being reviewed have to submit the review by November 1st. The committee must submit the reports by November 1st. The committee must start its review by February 1st and then submit.
I'm leaving right now. They're asking me to present my bill. Senator Maxman, can you take over?
And the committee starts its review by February 1st of second session, submits a letter on its review on March 31st, I believe. So the one question that the commissioner may discuss is it's fairly clear that the committee has jurisdiction over the department. I did not look into, but I did wonder about the committee or even the legislature's jurisdiction over the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. It is funded by the state, and it's a very important commission, but whether or not anyone in the legislature has authority to require them to report under the Government Evaluation Act is an open question. And that's, I think, enough of an overview for you all, unless you have questions. So I'm thinking that Senator Rosen, who is now chairing, is probably going to turn this over to the commissioner.
Oh, he asked Senator Maximum.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Yes, we will turn it over to the commissioner at this moment. Thank you, Lynn.
Great. Thank you, Senator Maximum. Members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources, Pat Kelleher, Commissioner at DMR, and I'm going to have Deidre Gilbert jump in and back me up on anything that I might miss. The GEA report is a report that's quite extensive in the way that it is described in statute. And so the broad question that I want to ask the committee here today is, to what level do you want us to report? In 2005, we reported on all parts of the GEA report, which is parts A through O or P, I believe. And back in 05, the committee's direction was just give us a quick overview of all of the parts of the GEA report. You don't need to necessarily go into extensive detail. In 2013, when it was discussed with the committee went through each part and discussed amongst themselves to what level do we want information. And at the end of the day, the committee at the time said, we don't want you to report on anything except parts B and J. And B was a description of each program, priorities, performance measures, and any assessment that we would do. And that's part B. And then part J is identification of emerging issues. And in 2013, we were just starting to deal with the issues of climate change. We've probably been dealing with it for a decade, frankly, but we were just starting to understand some of the implications, and certainly emerging issues now. Everything that we deal with is directly related to climate change and warming waters. So my question to the committee is, what would you like? This could be a tremendous amount of work for the agency. Obviously, it's in statute. We're willing to and happy to give the committee the information that you want. But if we were to do a deep dive into all of these issues, it's going to take a tremendous amount of staff time to pull all of this together. So I'm hoping to get some additional guidance from the members of the committee on what they would like to see in a report and what would be useful to you, frankly, as the committee of jurisdiction. I mean, when we report out at the beginning of every session, for instance, we report out on the organizational structure, including our position counts, and position counts are part of the budget. We also lay out what our enabling authorities are in law when we do those annual updates. We quite often will, actually not quite often, every beginning of every session, we within our PowerPoint, we talk about the identification of areas where we do coordinate with other state agencies and federal agencies, and you're certainly all well aware now of our ongoing work with ASMFC and the New England Fisheries Management Council, and then how the federal agencies all relate to those two bodies. So a lot of this is, I feel, would be repetitive back to the committee. But if there are issues that the committee thinks that they would like us to highlight and work on, we'd be more than happy to do that. So I don't know, Senator Maximum, how you'd like to proceed with this. We could write a report on how many ticks are in Alna, because I've become quite proficient in the amount of ticks in Alna in your district. We got to do something about that, Senator.
I absolutely agree with that one. I see Lynn has her hand raised.
Thank you, Senator. I forgot to mention that there is a provision in the statute where the committee can waive the report or portions of the report or the deadline for the report. It does require a 2/3 vote of the committee members, and I should have mentioned that beforehand.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Commissioner. Do committee members have any responses to the commissioner or any thoughts on how we want to move forward?
Of this PFAS. So
Representative Crafts.
And look, basically going to step back to resolve.
Or Representative Bloom, I'm sorry.
The Board of Pesticide Control.
Other Lydia. Hi, thanks, Chloe. Senator Maximum. Commissioner Kelleher. What about, I guess what I'm interested in is just part of the report, the federal monies related to the coastal programs. But you said a lot of this is repetitive. So if there's any major changes, I guess, is what I'd be interested in seeing.
In major changes in regard to funding streams?
I guess so. And is that part of the report, the funding streams aspect?
Yeah, there is a section of the report. Hold on, let me find it quickly. Financial summaries, including source of fundings by program and amounts allocated or appropriated and expended over 10 years. So we certainly could run some budget queries around what those numbers look like and how they've tracked over the last 10 years. So you could get a picture of how those monies have either increased or decreased. We could certainly do that.
And then we would have also going forward, the possibilities of that changing is pretty great with the administration and with new programs and so on from the feds. Would you agree with that? So that might be helpful to see the trends and to understand how that's improving, and what are you going to do with those new funds? If they come in?
Yeah. So certainly under the Trump administration, many of the programs that we depend on were actually zeroed out in the president's budget and then restored by Congress. And there's always, it doesn't matter who's president, there's always that back and forth as far as priorities. And then it's worked out through the legislative branch of government, no different than here. The governor proposes and the legislature disposes, the old saying. So we certainly could, let's see how that would work. So we could do a report around that. And I think what we could do, Representative Bloom, is indicate when the president's report comes out, how those funds may be changing and how they're looked at as a priority from the current administration.
I think that would be helpful, but I really don't want to put a lot of, I don't want to put pressure on you to do a lot of extra work, because it seems to me that if we did the whole report, this would be a lot of extra work for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, a report like this, when you read it, is from a small agency standpoint, it's like, there's a lot of burden here, and it would take a lot of staff time to pull it together if it was done, parts A through O or P, however far it goes up now. That's why if there is specific areas that the committee would like us to focus on, we could do 2 or 3 parts and do a deeper dive. And that would be, to me, it would be more beneficial to the committee of jurisdiction to then help give guidance on any particular program that you have interest in.
Well, my interest is in the federal money and how it's going to relate to the state money. That's my interest. I don't know if my colleagues agree, but I would like to, because I think in terms of climate change and the fact of the climate action plan, making that happen through your jurisdiction, through DMR's jurisdiction, how is that going to impact and help achieve the goals of the climate action plan? I mean, that's what I guess I'm looking for is any information that would help determine your ability to do aspects of the climate action plan.
Yeah, we certainly we certainly could take that approach. If, for instance, what I would do is I would look back to the climate action plans around emerging issues, and then we could develop a report based on that, right? And how each program interacts with that. And we could also identify any shortfalls in funding or any areas on the federal side where we believe we might need more funding.
I think that would be really great. I think that would be very helpful. I think it'd be very helpful from a lot of different agencies at this point in time, as we're approaching new fundings and different ways of different new things happening. So yes, I would like to request that. If it's not too much of a burden, I would really like to request that.
We'd be happy to focus on that particular area. I think it's, the emerging issues, it's really the to me it would be line J, it would be part E and part J, and then with an overlay of interactions with climate. And we could take that approach.
Great, thank you. That would be my request.
Representative Hepler.
I seem to have lost my ability to raise my hand with the blue hand. Yeah, I agree with Representative Bloom. And I think the issue of, as the commissioner said, about emerging issues would be great. And also particularly what sorts of funding shortfalls are anticipated, because then we can also advocate for that.
Great.
Are there any other thoughts or questions for the commissioner?
Can I say one more thing? And the other thing I wanted to say is that I think in this committee in particular, I think at least I feel very up to date on things as they move forward. So so thank you to the commissioner and all your staff.
I mean, there are parts within here that seem, incredibly repetitive. I mean, there is this broad section K or part K, any other information specifically requested by the committee. So to me, that would fit with what Representative Bloom and Hepler are mentioning. I love this one, the identification of constituencies served by the agency or program. I think you guys are all well aware of our constituent base. During this time of year, you hear from them more than I do sometimes. So, and I really think that's it. I mean, if it pleases the committee, we certainly could do a deep dive into those sections. We would just need, I think the way it's worked in the past, and I would look to Lynn, I think what we've done is help kind of craft the letter from the committee would say, based on the presentation from the committee waives the following and asks you to focus on parts E and J, and then with a focus on funding shortfalls from both, I would say probably the state and federal level.
Representative Bloom.
Thank you. And the only other I see as an emerging issue, of course, are the whale rules and the effects on our constituencies. What aspect of that would be applicable in the report, or if there's anything that would be applicable?
Certainly the biological opinion, I think, will be the emerging issue. We'll know what I'm hoping in July, we'll understand what the overall rule will look like as it pertains to the 2022 season, what we're coming into, but I'm sure it will actually touch the fall of 2021 if they move forward with a closed area. But we could reference the biological opinion, Representative Bloom, and talk about kind of the what ifs, because they are what ifs at this time. I mean, until we know what is happening in Canada and the success Canada will have, and what we will see on an annual basis as far as reproduction capabilities of the North Atlantic right whale. Had a very good season, calving season this year. But if it goes right back to poor calving, then the what ifs really become draconian what ifs. If we see a lot of success and no mortality in Canada, and we see continued success of high birthing rates in Florida and Georgia in the spring, then that what ifs become a little bit different on what the agency might be looking to for the industry for changes. And it's not, at that point in time, it's not just the lobster industry. It'll be the gillnet fisheries as well. So we certainly can put if you'd like, we can put a paragraph or two in around the right whale issue.
I think that would be great, because I feel like all of these what ifs are so scary. And I've never seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there another place where we could see your thoughts on it all? And if we don't have it written down, I think it might be important to have it written down. You know, the what ifs, just because it is so important to the state of Maine.
Yeah, we have not, we don't kind of project what might happen. All right. I mean, we have tremendous written record as it pertains to the rulemaking and the biological opinion and our comments on those. What we will wait now from an agency perspective, looking at policy and how we're going to try to influence policy change, we would do that through our written comments. I get a little bit concerned about going into a wide range of what ifs, because I'm afraid some of those might turn into conspiracy theories if things don't, they can take a life of their own. And so I'd be a little bit cautious about going too broadly on those. What I would do is talk about them as an emerging issues and things that have to be watched going into the future.
I think that sounds prudent.
Okay.
And thank you. I just think I think it's just so important. It has to be mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner and Representative Bloom, and I believe Senator Miramont is back if he wants to take over chairing duties.
I can do that. Somebody might ask me a question otherwise, but I'm mostly here, so I'll do that. And thank you for doing that, Senator Maxman. I appreciate that. And I also have Judiciary going. I see our wonderful Representative McCray over there. So I know that you were answering questions, but did you want to continue with your briefing? Commissioner, is that you?
I finalized the questions I was going to ask Senator Miramont. So I guess now, if it pleases the committee, we could work with the analyst to finalize a letter from the committee back to the agency that would focus our report would focus on Part E and Part J. Again, around funding shortfalls, both federal and state. And then we would identify those emerging issues. And in particular, we would focus on some of the issues around right whales and some of the what if scenarios, kind of highlighting what we're going to need to be keeping an eye on.
And that aligns with what you've done in the past. That's been good for the committee. I think that's the meat of it. So that sounds great. And you've already talked about that. And did you already talk about the ASFC part?
No, that was going to be my final request to the committee, is that when Lynn sent around the initial information and deadlines, it spelled out the evaluation of the Atlantic State Marine Fisheries Commission. The Atlantic State Marine Fisheries Commission is an entity of states or compact of states from Maine to Florida. As you're all aware, it is established under a federal law called the Atlantic Coastal Fisheries and Conservation Act, ACFACMA, and that is again, it's a federal law that the Maine legislature doesn't have any authority over to try to work with. So this was quite a few years ago now. We actually used to even have a separate budget line item, and now we've actually rolled that ASMFC budget line item back into DMR. I think we pay around $80,000 annually into the commission for our dues, and it's because of the value. There's a funding formula for ASMFC, and it's based on landings and the size of your state as far as number of participants. So we're one of 3 states that pay in the most, but the majority of funding for it is federal funding that comes in. I do want to point out, though, as a reminder, it's not a federal entity at all. ASMFC is, again, it's developed as a compact of states. And so because the legislature doesn't have any authority over it, I would just waive any needed reports that pertain to ASMFC.
I agree with you, and the committee should know that there's a constant questioning of the staff and others. The commissioner here is also the commissioner of the ASMFC now, and they're always looking for ways to be efficient. They encourage, when we have meetings that we travel to, I get there and I don't charge the commission if I can. And other people are like that too. They try to get us to get the cheapest flight, get the best deal on transportation. I mean, share cabs, they're very responsible about spending the money. I've never been in a group that brought that up as often to make sure we're all being efficient with the funds that, so we don't have to raise them and that they go to protecting fish and species. So I can tell you that, but I really think that that kind of answers it since they run it well and we pay a fair share of dues. If anybody has any other questions, the commissioner can probably answer them, but I don't see a need for a further report either. Okay, all right, I don't see any hands. So that seems to satisfy that part. I'm not quite clear. So you already got all you needed around the first part of the briefing. We're all set with that?
I think so, unless any other members would like to see additional information reported on.
Okay, no members. Lynn has a hand up. Please, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I said while you were away that the committee would need to vote and there would need to be a 2/3 vote on each of those items to waive all the requirements for the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, it sounds like, and limit the scope for the department.
Is that 2/3 present so we can take care of this now?
It says 2/3 of all committee members. Usually that's interpreted, I think 2/3 of the members present, if you have a quorum, is going to be sufficient.
All right, then. And we seem to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We seem to have that. We'll need people, their picture on to vote, but by a show of hands of the people who are here, if you could come up on with your picture, please, so we can count your vote. We're just at the limit, so we need everyone who can turn their picture on. Okay, let me check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have exactly 7 with the senator. And what, let's see. I guess we need a motion, and I think it's that we accept the report and as it's been presented, and we move forward from there. Is that roughly it, Lynn? What do you need for language?
I would suggest that there be a motion to waive the report from the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission and to limit the report from the department to items E
And J.
And J.
Sure.
And I actually would throw in K because K is all other information. So I would say E, J, and K so that what the committee is asking is covered.
Okay, so we're waiving the ASMFC. We're getting briefed on E, J, and K. If anybody would like to make a motion by saying just that that's the motion.
May I say something?
Yes, Representative Bloom.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I guess I want to make sure that the climate action plan, when you were gone, Senator Miramont, we talked about the climate action plan and the readiness of the department for the climate action plan. I wasn't sure if that has to be part of the motion or not.
Is it part of the request?
I mean, those details, Commissioner Kelleher, the details of the climate action plan and the whale rules. Do we want to say that?
So I think it's clear in the record, Representative Bloom, and it certainly is reflective in my notes that the issues around the climate action plan priorities as it relates to the department and emerging issues that would include, these would all fall under emerging issues, and as well as right whales as it pertains to the biological opinion and what may be happening in the future.
Okay, great, thank you. And so I move that.
Okay, moved by Representative Bloom. Thanks for putting that part in, Representative. Need a second, which thank you. Representative Hepler seconded. and many people did, but that's the first one I saw. So thank you very much. And it feels like a show of hands. So all those in favor of that motion, my hand in front of the camera. And it's unanimous among 7 people who are here and voting. And so we're good with that. Anybody mention that next week we're going to meet? Did I do this already? Hold on. No. Okay. Lynn, do you have any follow-up on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be drafting a letter and I will work with the department that specifies what the DMR report is going to include, and then that will be shared with the chairs, and that will be where Representative Bloom, where the specifics are included that has been talked about today. So I just wanted to assure the committee that the letter will have those specifics.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, that wraps up that bit of business. The other that we advertised, we took care of already. We have a couple of bills that'll be finished here any minute. There's no action we have to take on them. They're just kind of coming back through the process. You guys are amazing. Our committee, I saw the report sheet, we're at 91%, which is really 100, but good work, everyone. And that leaves next Tuesday. The commissioner's going to come regarding the supplemental budget, and it's going to be presented differently. And I think I can explain it. I've already explained it to one person, but the commissioner can explain it quite clearly. And that's what you'll be here for next week. And I'll tell you the format ahead, just so you'll know. We're going to let him have some flow next week. So when he starts to brief, we're going to let him go through this budget. It'll take him half hour to 45 minutes to go through it. You're going to take notes of questions that you have and see if they get checked off as he continues through, because sometimes there's a jumping back and forth by the nature of doing a budget briefing with the committee by section. So you take notes, then if you hear something answered, you can check it off. And then at the end, we'll dig deeper into it as a committee, unless there's something that just absolutely has to be asked at the moment, but we'll keep it moving that way. So I'm going to let the commissioner explain why it's going to be done this way, but Representative McDonald had her hand up, so I'm going to let her ask questions so he can answer if it's about this.
Thank you, Senator. So for clarity, next week, are we just receiving a briefing or are we voting on any portion of the budget?
We will have to vote on this too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Lynn, did you have a question before we give it to the commissioner? No. Commissioner, can you explain what you're doing next week, please? And we can't hear you, but.
That's my allotted 1 time per day for not shutting the mute button off. So just a little recent history lesson, as you all know, based on COVID and based on the changes to the budget, while we presented our full budget to you, there was some modifications to the budget. The base budget was passed, and that leaves us with the programmatic changes. I shouldn't say programmatic, the changes associated to the supplemental budget. So what we will present to you next week is the details around our supplemental budget. And we will also, what you will hear in that are the positions that the committee voted on. The governor did approve those positions to be added to the budget. So you will hear those as well. And then after we deal with the budget per se, and the senator asked me about the voting of it, you've all heard this. I think you could, if everybody remains in support, you could just vote it up or down based on all of the input. And if there's concerns about parts, then you could break it apart and vote on the individual pieces if needed. And then at the completion of that, I am going to explain the portions of the American Recovery Act dollars that will touch the Department of Marine Resources, which is substantial. And so we'll go into detail about that as well. That part is it's my understanding that the governor's office is working with leadership on that. It's my understanding that part is not necessarily voted on. It's more of a briefing or an update.
And that will be exciting. Thank you, Commissioner, to not be talking about the things we can't do for whatever, for money, for the normal time, for the COVID time, talking about some things that will get the jumpstart and the excitement of finishing some of the work you've been trying to do. Representative Bloom.
So the American Recovery Act money then is not part of this GEA report.
That is correct.
Okay, so, but, all right, because that's what I was sort of talking about. I was talking about the federal money, how it's going to affect your work. So what then are we talking about if we're not talking about those kind of funds?
The way I would look at the GEA report on those federal lines would be the Coastal Zone Act money, other line items within the federal act that we get funding for, Atlantic salmon in particular, the interjurisdictional dollars. I mean, there's a lot of budget lines within commerce that we take advantage of. So what we would do is report out on those. Those are kind of the biannual or annual dollars, or sometimes actually we've got 5-year programs, programmatic grants set up. The American Recovery Act dollars will go into detail, and you will see exactly how those monies will touch some of the priorities within the climate action plan when we report them out.
So with the combination of both reports, we should know about your climate action readiness. I guess the other thing is, if we're getting these recovery dollars and they're earmarked for certain things, right? There's a way that you have to spend them, which you'll explain next week. I understand. Yeah. But if it's paying for something that, could then translate other dollars into, let's say, personnel, other budgetary dollars, that's the kind of thing I was looking for. I was looking for, how are you going to mix this? How are you going to meld this new money into what you really need to do overall?
Yeah, you'll see we have it broken down into 3 categories, and we'll go into the details of that. Some are directly related to department needs associated with, for instance, stabilizing our capital issue, the capital expenditure issues that we have for infrastructure. Then there is more broadly a part of infrastructure associated to climate change, to a lot of things that you would care about, Representative Bloom. And then more broadly, there is investments on the business side associated with processing and things of that nature. So there's 3 distinct pots that the agency will touch, and then we'll go into the details of what each one of those are.
All right, I'll follow up next week and we can talk more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, because the presentation will enlighten us about it a lot. And I think that's all for business. All we have. Anybody? Anything? All right.
Yes, no, I have one thing more, sorry. I want to express an interest to hear from the commissioner and any other interested parties after the whale rules have been submitted, if we are still available to meet and hear from the commissioner about that whenever that happens. I just think it's important that we keep up on those things as a committee. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Well, interestingly, because of this format, not that I am loving it and I want to do our work in the State House, but it's very easy to pull the committee together for a Zoom meeting when it's a good time. So we'll keep that in mind for anything important, if we have to be that formal, beyond an email that tells us what's happening, but a briefing, I bet we can do that a lot more easily than we could in the past. So great idea. Okay. Anyone else? We still could adjourn Book 410 so that I can point that out to the other committee chairs, but okay, let's do it. Have a wonderful day. Good luck in all your other committees.